Today we are talking about 16th notes. They look like eighth notes, but instead of having one flag, they have two. 16th notes are half as long as eighth notes. Let's do some rhythm math problems to work on our understanding of 16th notes. In our first example, we have a 16th note plus something equals an eighth note. Well, we know that there are two 16th notes and an eighth note, so this missing one must be another 16th note. On our second example, we've got two 16th notes plus an eighth note equals something. Two 16th notes equal an eighth note, and then an eighth note plus an eighth note is equal to a quarter note. Let's take a look at our updated rhythm tree. We've got our whole note in top, which splits into two half notes. Our half notes each equal two quarter notes, so we've got four quarter notes equaling one whole note. Each quarter note can be two eighth notes, either beamed together like this on the left, or with flags on the right, meaning that there are four eighth notes in one half note, or eight eighth notes in a whole note. And each eighth note can split into two 16th notes. On the far left here, I've got them beamed four together. Here we've got two beamed together, two sets of two, or we can have with the double flags over here for our 16th notes. That means that there are two 16th notes and an eighth note, four 16th notes and a quarter note, 8 16th notes in a half note, and 16 16th notes in a whole note. When you're counting 16th notes in time signatures with 4 as the bottom number, you split the beat into 4 parts by counting 1, E, and A. 1, E, and we write the letter A, but we say A. I like to reorganize our rhythm tree like this to help us figure out what to count and when. If something happens on the beat, if the quarter note, the first eighth note, or the first 16th note start on a beat, we're going to give it a 1. If there's a second 16th note follow, like two 16th notes in a row, the second one will be E. The second half of any beat, be that an eighth note or a 16th note in that position, will get and. If there's a fourth 16th note or a 16th note in this position, it would be a. So we've got 1 E and we can combine these however we'd like. So in our example up here, we've got 4 16th notes to start. So we'd put 1, E, and A. We've got an eighth note here, but it starts on a beat, so we're going to give it a 2. And now we're on the second half of the beat. We've used this eighth note. Now we're jumping down to here to the 16th note. That's an and. And then what's left over is the A. Here we've got a quarter note, so we go up. There it is. That's beat 3. 16th note starts the beat. If we check, we can have a 16th note start. So it'll be 4, E, and then we're on the second half of the beat, but we're only going to use an eighth note, so we can just write and. When you're counting 16th notes in 6/8, or any time signature with 8 as the bottom number, you count 16th notes the same way you would if you were counting eighth notes in time signatures with 4 as the bottom number. So our 16th notes down in our mini rhythm tree here are going to be 1 and. If an eighth note happens on a count, it's a 1. If there's two 16th notes in that count, it's 1 and, or whatever beat, and. So in our example here in 6/8, we've got a quarter note, which is going to get 2 counts. That's 1 with 2 on a line, and then an eighth note, which gets its own count. That's our 3. We got another eighth note. That's our count 4. An eighth rest is 5, but it's a rest, so we put it in parentheses. And then our 16th notes here. We go 6, and the second half of that count is and. The 16th rest looks like the eighth note, but it has a bonus circle and kind of swoop at the top of it. So our eighth rest looked like that. We just add another dot and swoop and connect it all. That's our 16th rest. Let's do some rest rhythm math. We've got a 16th rest plus a 16th rest, just like 16th note plus 16th note. That's going to equal an eighth rest. Got a longer one here. We got an eighth rest plus a 16th plus a 16th rest plus a half rest plus something equals a whole rest. So we've got two 16ths. Those are equal to 1 eighth rest. An eighth rest plus an eighth rest is equal to a quarter rest plus a half rest plus something equals a whole rest. That means we are missing a quarter rest. Here's our updated rest tree. We've got our whole rest at the top, which can be split into 2 half rests. Each half rest can be split into 2 quarter rests, or the whole rest can be split into 4 quarter rests. Each quarter rest can split into 2 eighth rests. There are 4 eighth rests in a half rest and 8 eighth rests in a whole rest. And we've got 2 16th rests per each eighth rest, meaning there are 4 16th rests in a quarter rest, 8 16th rests in a half rest, and 16 16th rests in a whole rest. All right, when we count 16th rests, we count them the same as 16th notes, but any rest just goes in parentheses. You can see I've got a mini note tree down on the right and a mini rest tree down on the left. So if we've got a note or a rest that starts on a beat, we give it that beat number. On the second quarter, we give it an E. The second half, or the third quarter, is on and, either a rest or a note. And the last quarter is an In our example here in 4/4, we've got a quarter note on beat 1. We've got a 16th note on beat 2, which we can count as a number. A 16th rest on the second quarter, that's going to be E in parentheses. A 16th note on the second half, which is an and a 16th note on the last quarter, which is an Then we've got 2 eighth notes. The first one's on the beat, so it's a 3. The second one is on the second half, which is an and. Now we've got a 16th rest on a beat, so it's going to be a number. Since it's a rest, it's in parentheses. And then a 16th note on the second quarter, that's E, and an eighth note, and that's going to be our and. When we're counting 16th rests in time signatures with 8 as the bottom number, they work just the same as eighth rests do in time signatures with 4 as the bottom number. We're going to count the ones on the count with the number, and we're going to count those on the second half as an and. So you can see here, if we see an eighth rest in 6/8, for instance, it would be the number in parentheses. A 16th rest on the count would get the count. A 16th rest on the second half of the count would get an and. We've got our note tree over here to help out as well. So if this example, we're at 6/8, we've got a quarter note, that's going to get 2 counts. This 16th note is on a count, so we're going to give it a 3. And the 16th rest is on the second half, so we're going to put and in parentheses. Eighth note gets a full count. This 16th rest is on the count, so we're going to put a number in parentheses. And this 16th note is on the second half of a beat. We're going to call that as an and this eighth note gets its own count. Let's review. We've got our note tree on the left here. Whole notes can split into 2 half notes. Each half note splits into 2 quarter notes. Each quarter note can split into 2 eighth notes, either with beams on the left or with flags on the right. And each eighth note can split into 2 16th notes. Again, beams on the left, flags on the right. On the right side of the screen, we've got the whole rest, which can split into 2 half rests, each half rest into 2 quarter rests, each quarter rest into 2 eighth rests, and each eighth rest into 2 16th rests. Let's practice counting a couple examples. Here we're in 3/4. We've got a quarter note on the beat that takes all of beat 1. 16th note starts the next beat. It gets the number. We've used 1 quarter of beat 2, so the second quarter is E. We're now halfway through beat 2. We've got a 16th rest, so that's going to be and in parentheses. And a 16th note to finish the beat is And we've got 2 eighth notes here, one on the beat and the other on the second half for 3 and. On the bottom, we've got an example in 6/8, so now we're counting eighth notes. This eighth note starts the measure, so it's 1. This 16th note starts this count, so it starts 2, but only uses half of the count. That means this 16th rest is the second half, but it's a rest, so it goes in parentheses. Then we've got an eighth note for count 3. We've got a 16th note to start count 4, so we put a 4. The second half is and. This 16th rest starts the next count. We put it in parentheses because it's a rest. This is the second half of count 5. This 16th note starts count 6, and this 16th note finishes the measure on an and. Thanks for watching.